Here. For those interested in the website for the game that I'm going to be talking about, let me post that in here. Now, this is going to be a big thing for me personally, and just those that are interested, please, feel free to ask about it. Whatever you need to do, I've got a picture somewhere already. I think downloaded. Let's see here, downloads. Let's see. No, is it in documents? No. Is it in pictures? I know it's somewhere. Nope, I don't have it there. I don't know where it's at the moment. But anyway, we're gonna get that set up, and that interview is gonna start in about 1 minute. So everybody, stay tuned for that. Yep, we're just getting it set up. And hello, Santana. How are you doing? Hopefully, Santana can hear me. Make sure we have everything set up all right. Hello.
Hello.
Yay, I can hear you. All right. So, hi, Santana. How are you doing?
Great.
Awesome. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Chronicles of Elyria today.
Excellent.
Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody that's out there right now?
Yep, sure thing. Thanks a lot for hosting this, Arias. I am Count Santana Salvatore. Um, I am the Count of Salvatore County, which is for a game called Chronicles of Elyria. And we've got a pretty good crew here of about 30 to 50 people, some more active than others. But our main goal is kind of to just set up a community within Salvatore for people who are interested in Illyria to be able to have a core group ready beforehand as more features start to get released with the timelines of all the different releases, pieces of the game that are going to be released in the next 2 years.
Okay. So, Chronicles. So, Chronicles is supposed to be released in the next 2 years, and that's just the full game, right? That's not just the. That's not just as opening up as an alpha, but the whole game itself within 2 years, right?
That is absolutely correct. We could, if you'd like, just kind of discuss the timelines a little bit, but it's completely up to you.
Yeah, I don't mind that. But before we get into that, I think maybe we should just take a moment and explain what Chronicles of Elyria is for people out there. It's an MMORPG that is a super sandbox game that allows people to join, and leave kingdoms. That there are going to be kingdoms at the very start of the game, and that those kingdoms will morph and grow and change over time. That all the roles from the king all the way down to the peasant are all played by players that will interact with various NPCs. But kingdoms can be fought over, land can be fought over and controlled, and in a sense, though, on a micro scale, your character has a day-to-day living and day-to-day life. Would you say that's fair enough? Outside of the
Absolutely.
Yeah, outside of the full background of just just running around and always fighting for a kingdom. That isn't how it necessarily has to be.
Yep, that's a very good surface level explanation. Absolutely, Arius.
All right. What else would you like to? What would you say Chronicles is to you as a player? What what is Chronicles? Actually, I need to change up this topic. But what does Chronicles encompass as far as a game to you compared to other MMOs that are out there and other MMOs that are being developed that are kind of sandboxy and sometimes not?
Well, and if at any time, if there's some type of a technical issue or audio issue, let me know, Arius. But my
Sure.
audio should be coming through fine.
Yep. Yep.
You hear me okay?
Yep. I do.
Great. I'm just checking that before we proceed. So,
Sure.
um, I've I've played quite a few different MMORPGs. I'm about 40 years old. I started gaming, when I was 12. So I've had my fair share of, playing MMORPGs, and quite a different other variety of categories. But the thing that I was so interested in with Illyria was primarily the aspect of permadeath. Is one of the things that is quite interesting, and the value behind keeping your character quote unquote healthy, not dying.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it this whole Renaissance thing is one of my hobbies. I've been playing D&D forever. Yesterday we were actually playing at my friend's house. He flew out from Florida so we could play some D&D, and we realized that we've been playing D&D for over 30 years. That was quite funny. But that was another one of the reasons, the whole fantasy aspect of it, and the depth of what was first presented a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, when I first hopped on the bandwagon of Illyria, in the pre-Kickstarter, basically the initial Kickstarter, when I went in and pledged in to the game. I'm interested in this whole political and hierarchy thing they have going with the kings, the counts, the dukes. I'm also interested in just the minute aspects of the game, like crafting and all the little things that go into the video game itself are very interesting to me. I've always liked pretty elaborate crafting gaming. Being coming from a Star Wars Galaxies background and having such an elaborate crafting system and gathering system, and all the different aspects that come behind that. I'm also very interested in the combat aspect of it all, and even the role-playing aspect of it all. I role-play as a hobby, so some of these things are the things that kind of drove me to invest in Illyria.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of what drove me over to this game as well. Was that whenever I was looking for a game to really sink my teeth into, I was looking for a really big sandbox world that had not just, I mean, in-depth crafting is always a big thing for me, but I want a living, vibrant world. And it's weird to compare this to games like EVE Online, which is a space game, but at the same time, it is sandboxy. That it is what you build in the world. It is where you live, what you make of where you live. Characters, they go out, they farm, there's blacksmithing, there's tailoring, there's all of these things, and there are professions in the game that are also not normally seen in the game. Series, an entire line of professions around things that no one's really thought of, and to me that comes in like I just want to talk about the scribe for a moment, right? And these line of trade skills about your character being able to read, your character being able to write, your character being able to go in and advance and start creating contracts. And the higher your skills, the more in-depth contracts you can make with various clauses, with manipulations to a contract, if you will say. And those reading and writing skills will also lead to other skills, or potentially that are not so trustworthy skills, such as being able to forge documents and have the NPCs recognize the legality of those forged documents, and that even the king's laws that are set forth within the game world about what is illegal and what is not illegal to the NPCs and to the within the kingdom itself, and that the NPCs can react to, are also going to be based around this like scribing even. I find that the whenever you mention crafting, there's so much more to crafting than just, armor and plate, tailoring and blacksmithing, that it goes far beyond that in the scale, not to mention the intricacy and how that will actually work in game. Because one of the things that I haven't heard anyone talk about in quite some time is that even whenever it comes to armor smithing, if you're going to cut out a breastplate, you really actually with your mouse you need to trace over the shape that they put in front of you for this breastplate and get to the end of it in time. And how well you do at tracing within this allotted amount of time will determine not only if you succeed or fail, but also potentially the quality of the item that we end up with. This is unlike anything I've seen before in a crafting sense in an MMORPG ever that I can think of. And that drew me in too, right? It's just so ridiculously in depth all over the place, and that the way that they're going about it is so different that how can you not be fascinated by a game like Chronicles of Elyria?
Yeah, I completely and absolutely agree. And, I'm sitting here at the edge of my seat every week waiting, um, for the next, bit of information. But um, it's been great the past month or so. I've been kind of keeping up regularly, almost on a daily basis. And there have been a couple of quite exciting announcements, one of which was Caspian coming out with some of the timeline estimates.
Mm-hmm.
And now the announcement of the content that is going to be quote unquote furnished at PAX West. And, I know we were talking about crafting, but, anything I can get from the game really has been so exciting. And the past month has been so exciting to see them, putting some of this information out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's neat to look at. And so go ahead if you'd like. Go ahead and run us through the timeline about what's coming up and how it's coming along.
Oh, absolutely. And this is probably the most exciting announcement, right? Is like, when are things, going to be delivered? When are these deliverables going to be presented to the community? And I'm looking at the timeline right now. It was the State of Elyria announcement that Caspian discussed, and it was quite a long thread. It discussed quite a few things. The most important part of it, which was the timelines, but reading through that thread, it's a really long thread. You see, he talks a little bit about the team, which to some people is not interesting. But I want to touch maybe 2 to 5 minutes on that later, about specifically the team. Um, but the timelines basically, and I'm looking at it here right now, is quite a few different phases. Um, let's see here what we've got. We've got V3 of the website, which is Q3 of 2017. After that, he has said that the Elyria Mud might be presented in Q4 of 2017. Alpha 1, wow, exciting. We can actually play the game. At what condition it'll be in or what features will be there, we don't know, obviously, but that'll be in T1 of 2018. Server selection is very exciting also, specifically for the nobility, to be able to lock in what server that you're going to be on. And I don't know the server lists memorized, but I know there's going to be NA East, NA West areas. You could maybe elaborate on this a little bit more later. I just apologize. I don't have all the server list information in front of me. Maybe D can elaborate on it. Server selection will be again in T1 of 2018. Settlement, domain selection. Wow, this is also super exciting. We're going to be able to select settlements, our settlement, our county, our strongholds, areas I know you've pledged at the level of mayor. So at that point, and at what extent that's going to be, how that will be done is not released in detail yet. It's just an estimated timeline that in T2 of 2018, that will be available in some way or form. Kingdoms of Elyria, everyone's talking about it. T2 of 2018. Design experiences, and I apologize, I don't know in detail exactly what that means, is in T3 of 2018. Alpha 2, it will be in T3 of 2018. And now we're really getting a piece of the pie here in Beta 1 in S1 of 2019. So in 2019, we should be able to play the game in beta mode, which is probably one of the hugest milestones. I would say top 3 milestones of game development and timelines. Prologue and the Adventure Toolkit, which I don't have specific details on, will be in 2019. I know the prologue is a little bit of tightened step. Maybe Arius can elaborate on that more. Exposition is the floodgates. The floodgates open. S1 of 2019. That is the 3 months that a certain class of people at a certain pledge level will be able to get in and start molding in the quote unquote release of the game. And there's 3 months in exposition before the final the secondary floodgates open to the mass public, which is every single other person who has either bought in a Spark of Life for $30 or whatnot. So the regular players. And then we've got Beta 2 and S1, S2 of 2019, stress testing in S2 of 2019, and launch will be in S2 of 2019. I apologize in advance if I made that too long.
That's all right. It's perfectly fine. But you know, we've talked about it, but there are aspects about the game that some of the core differences between this game and other games that we haven't. There's so much I want to talk about. You know, about how the game. To let people know, and I'm going to show a video that I was just showing again, just a moment ago in the background here on the stream. So in this game, characters age, and also based on their fitness and their activity, they can get fatter, they can get skinnier, they can lose weight, they can gain weight. They will eventually grow old, and eventually the body in which they inhabit will die. But that doesn't mean that the progress or that the what?
I'm gonna die in this game?
I know, right? The body will die, but but you're not really playing.
I don't want to die.
one specific character. You're playing kind of a soul that inhabits bodies as you go through generations. And this
That's
is,
the most absolute. That's the most important aspect to understand is the soul spark.
yep. A lot of people will be like, the word permadeath gets thrown through, and people freak out really, really quick. They don't, because it's almost too harsh of a word. Any progress that you made in in a previous lifetime can be recouped quite quickly in your next lifetime. That you're able to. So whenever I begin the game, I'm going to begin as Arius Coilmore of the Kippic, and a part of your kingdom as you are Count Santana, and our characters will grow old and they will die, and perhaps go into you'll take over. You want to make sure that you have families in the game. There's marriage in this game, and in fact, Santana has a PC wife in the game, but there are also NPC wives and husbands, and same-sex marriage is allowed, and there's a baby contracts that you can make, and where you have kids, and eventually, I assume you're going to take control over one of your children and or grandchildren.
That is a definitely safe assumption.
Right, because in this game, you can bequeath your belongings, your wealth, your riches, your land, which is really your riches if you think about it, because that is an incredible thing. Even your titles to your children upon your death. And so if you can make sure that your line is locked
Yep.
to you and just you, and like a particular son or and so forth, and you lock that down, and then you have other children, maybe another son or another daughter, and you let your friend play that, and then they will get control over that part of the lineage from there down, anything that extends off that character, and then they can open that up to their friends and so forth. So over time, we can go down this line, down the chain within the family, because the concept is that this is going to be a 10-year story. They're planning a 10-year video game here, with every year, as things continue to evolve, time will pass. But time passes quicker in game than out of game. Now I'm talking about 1 year real life, about as the story progresses forward. But our characters within 1 year will live. Characters will live typically anywhere from 10 to 14 months, depending. So if you just say at 12 months, if your character on average will live for a year, your character will be in their, what is it, the latest calculation? They're going to be in their late 80s or so whenever they die. Somewhere around there, I think, after they redid all the time stuff. But anyway, we will die at older ages. And, a lot of things take part in the conditions in if you die from old age, that is, what happens, so that, we've talked a good bit about the game, but what we really need to talk about is the particular county that you control, and the family that we're kind of establishing and building over there in Chronicles. So this all started, though, in essence, from you had not pledged Count yet. You were pledged in as Baron, from my point of view. Whenever you initially contacted me, I got in quite early into the county, thankfully, due to Santana, who saw that there were people, because there's a public Discord for Chronicles as well, and Santana had poked me and was like, "Are you looking for a place?" And we began to talk, and that led into me becoming a part of this barony that he was over, and Para, his wife, was over, and what role I would play within that barony. Which a barony in this case, barons. Different from real life, barons are more of the military faction of versus the commoner citizens, right? Mayors are over towns, barons are over baronies, which are a military force. Think the North, or think, think of a medieval military force, and that's where your troops are. That's the way it's kind of set up in this game. Go ahead. What were we going to say, Santana? I may have lost Santana there for a moment.
Least, but you'll also be able to create Baron hybrids or Mayor hybrids. In my opinion, this isn't confirmed, but I believe that Arius, you could be a mayor also and still do quite a bit of military. It's just the mechanics behind that role are a little bit different. And as Arius said, barons are more military oriented, and some of the mechanics are tied to that, whereas a mayor is more non-military oriented, and the mechanics are tied to that also.
Yep, yep. Yep, a lot of things are possible to do role play wise. It's just how the mechanics will play in game with that. Because on a mechanics level, I'm a mayor, and even
Correct.
though I don't consider I consider Heartwood Glen family a family home, like one big single massive piece of land for my family. In truth, is it's a miniature town full of just my family members who are going to we're going to have our kids and our babies and our wives and our husbands and kind of our heritage stuff there within the Heartwood Glen. So and that's kind of actually in medieval times you could say how Hamlet started, where it was a couple of families got together and that was it. That was just it. Just those families. And generations later, that's all it was. Still, just those families, really. Everybody's related to everybody somehow. But yeah. So whenever you were looking at the game and you were thinking about becoming a baron, um, what were your plans kind of then, like what gave you the idea or the desire to become a baron and to kind of take control over a bit of land, and how did that evolve into becoming a count that's going to be over an entire county?
So originally, the reason why I had selected Baron um, is for the past 2, 3 years, I've been playing a campaign where we have kind of a similar type of Baron, Earls, and Kings, and it's a midi.
I think you're breaking up on me again, unfortunately, Santana. Not sure what's going on there. So he'll be. I'm certain Santana will be right back. By the way, while we're waiting for Santana to come back in, let me show you a little bit more about the tech in this game, guys. So in this game, there's some very interesting tech that's going on with ice and snow, and you can see here that the seasons will physically change in game, and that as they do, and as it snows, you'll see that ice will start to form on the very ground that they're walking in, and the snow will begin to accumulate on the ground as well. And you may even be able to see some footprints happen. And this happens, this is
Yep.
something that's going on. Welcome back,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm gonna switch really quick. I'll be right back, so I don't have this issue again. My apologies.
No
2 seconds.
problem. So you can see that the tech in this game is quite interesting. The Soulbound engine that they're using in conjunction with Unity is allowing them to do some things that are really, really different and really, really nifty. That makes it an immersive world. One thing I think about is how, like, whenever
There we go.
when we're playing video games, like be it World of Warcraft style game or whatever, you find that you have the land always looks the same, that even in winter there's like no snow accumulation, or they have to patch that in and it's just there temporarily as kind of a paint over, and then they revert it back after that season. But in this game, it's always something that happens as the weather changes and the temperature changes and where you live even, and how that snow accumulates, and or the rain, and that and wetness. If it rains, the streets get wet, puddles form literally out on the ground, and water collects, and it
Items will
creates.
get impacted.
Yeah, and swords left outside can become rusted and things of that nature. So it really does affect the world around. So sorry, Santana. Please continue back with what brought you from made you decide you wanted to be a baron and then led into becoming a count.
I just want to be a baron that is a good baron. I would hate to be a citizen um, and a part of a county or a barony of someone who would not make the experience enjoyable for me. If I'm going to invest in the game, I want to be a part of a group that I can really evolve with, that there's some value there, that there's some trust there, and there's going to be a lot of cooperation involved with multiple different player characters. So I kind of want to be at the top of the pole, not in an egotistical way, but in a way that I can furnish to the people of my community the best possible experience that they could possibly have. And that's why I wanted to go with a leadership position, to try to go that direction for the players. And we started to grow. We grew from just a few people, half a dozen people to a dozen people, then to about 20, 30, 40, 50 people. And at that point, we realized we had quite a few different barons and mayors and players. So we decided to bump it up to the county level so that we could accommodate all those people, within the mechanics of the game, to be able to select their community, select their baronies and their cities, and still we can all be together under the banner of one county.
Yep. And I'm thankful that you let me in. We've been creating this role play dialogue amongst our characters too, where my family has worked for his family. A part of my family has worked for his family for generations, and in turn, that has brought a closeness between Arius and Santana. Actually, while we were in our very young youth, which actually when we enter game, we're still going to be pretty young, but
Yes.
but we will have this experience that we've built in, that there's already this trust, this loyalty between us, and I'm really excited to see how this continues to play out. For whatever reason, my character is
Absolutely.
slowly becoming the head of his family, which goes to the question of why is he the head of the family already? Like, what has happened? Which I still haven't figured out. But of all things, I was basically conceived my character as a butler type. I always go back to, and I talk about this, the TV show Merlin that the BBC had put out a few years ago, and
Love
how
that show.
what Merlin was to Arthur in that game, in that TV series, is kind of what I wanted to be to Santana. And then Para's existence modifies this whole scenario because Santana gave me as a gift to Para. So now I am her. I am Merlin to her Guinevere, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be interesting, but I still have direct ties to Santana. Like the loyalty comes from Santana, or to Santana, and that creates my loyalty to Para, because it is all about Santana and his family, because my family is invested in his family and I am personally invested in him.
And to add to that, Arius,
Congrats
the
on
meat
the
behind
possible
it,
acing it,
the
by the way.
mud and kingdoms, you'll actually be able to implement this in a story format and embed it into the quote unquote code of the game.
Yeah.
So that these types of elements are actually embedded within that dynamic experience that you mentioned earlier.
Yep. It's so hard to even kind of conceive that we could possibly even talk about this game in just an hour and go through the stuff that we have. I mean, we have like 20 plus dev journals about stuff, and then
Yes.
and State of Elyria videos and Can you be a stable girl? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Elena. That's the thing. If you want to play a stable girl, you can play a stable girl. If you want to play the resident whore, you can do that. Because every guy out there is probably going to want a kid. And every woman out there is going to probably want a husband, because you need children to sustain your family line, and which in turn becomes a big thing about your character. Because let's talk about the worst case scenario for a minute. Let's say somebody, did I just call you a hoe? I mean, I'm not saying nothing. Just, I love you, Elena. So what we have is also in worst case scenario, let's say that you don't have any children. Let's say that you have collected a fine amount of wealth, and you have horses and wagons and land and exotic goods and really awesome armor and all of this stuff. And let's say an unfortunate event happens, and not only do you do they try to it's not that maybe somebody's just trying to kill you, because chances are, if you're fairly young, you're still going to live. But not if you, say, example, fell off of a boat in the middle of the ocean. You're going to drown and you're going to die. Just die, because there's no way for you to get back. Even if you got back to your body, you're gone. That's it. You're just going to die again. So that doesn't work. In the event that something like that happened, in worst case scenario, you want a family, because if you don't have anyone to inherit your items, your stuff that you've spent, months or years collecting, and your land and everything and your titles, when your soul dies, your soul can't inhabit your grandkid or your kid. You're going to have to become what they call a ward of the state. And that means your soul is now going to have to inhabit a body of some unfortunate person who's basically an orphan that has no ties to anybody. And you're going to be given a handful of gold, and it's like restarting your character. Now, you do get to continue on with, you can pull back any skills that you have learned in a previous lifetime. You can apply to the character that you have now, and you can learn them back very quickly. But any wealth that you have and any items that you have in game would suddenly be gone. This game can be potentially ruthless, but at the same time is incredibly exciting, because it's about risk versus reward. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I'd like to do, Arius, is in the next few minutes before we hop on with D, I want to kind of give a real nice dose to the people out there of something a little, I want to kind of fine tune the conversation towards a couple of the most recent announcements that they made, and some of the content releases that they made, particularly the one that they're talking about, this jousting demo that they're going to be releasing in PAX East. So I just want to talk about that for a few more minutes, and then if we have more time, I just want to give the people a little bit of real meat, because everything that we're talking about right now is kind of leading up to what's happening right now. And what's happened is, in PAX West, they've developed a demo of an entire area that's going to be a jousting quote-unquote stage. And what the focus of this is going to be, obviously, is combat, and specifically jousting combat, which is very exciting for me. And I've read through everything. I was watching the Q&A that they released a couple of days ago, where they specifically were going into some really fine specifics, and I'm going to jump into that for a few minutes. And before I do, I mentioned that I was going to talk about how they, talk about the team behind Elyria, and it's so interesting to me to kind of go in and dig in and look at these team members. Some people are like, why are you talking about the team? No one cares. No one wants to know about them. But to me, if I'm playing a campaign with 8 people, I want to know some background about them. I want to know, what they're into. What do they like to do? What are their interests? And I'm coming to learn that a lot of the faces behind the creation of Elyria are people who really, really have a great concept behind what they're doing. It's not just some guy from anywhere that just got hired to design this stuff. These people are very passionate about what they're creating. They're very intelligent about the things that they're doing. And some of the specific things that I saw and heard them talking about were very exciting to me. Specifically, you know, one of the lead on the team just recently in the past 2 weeks went out to an actual jousting event. And I'm sorry, it might not have been a couple of weeks ago, it might have been some time ago, but based off of the videos that they captured from the actual jousting, interviewing the jousters, wearing the armor, holding the lance, looking at all the movements, all the different, you know, aspect of jousting, and trying to implement that in the virtual jousting, you know, mechanism is just been so intense and so exciting for me to see what they're doing, talking about all the different specifics. Like, for example, the relationship between you and your mount. It's said that there will be a relationship, that you will actually be able to have a relationship with your horse. And that relationship is going to play a key factor of how you control your mount, how your mount functions during whatever he's doing, whether it's mounted combat or jousting or riding. So that right there is such an interesting aspect of you know, the relationship between a man's best friend, basically, whether it be, you know, a dog, an animal, or a horse. We don't have all the specifics. We know that for sure with a horse it'll be that way. But also the design team, now with them going out and seeing people actually jousting, looking at the videos, boiling everything down, and then trying to make that an exciting experience. And they were talking about how the reticle is going to work and how it's going to zoom in, and it's going to be, you know, this virtual exciting experience where you feel like you're actually in a joust.
Well, you know, and that just in combat in general.
So yeah, that was quite exciting for me to see that part of it, Arius.
Yeah, just talking about combat in general, though, that's another thing I'd like to point out. Right now, they're seeing some very early combat on screen
Yes.
and what I wanted to point out was that to those that have played games like maybe Terra, or perhaps you've played Black Desert Online, you're familiar with a set, or if you're a console player, you're familiar with concepts of combo key combinations to do what you want to do. If you notice on the screen, you've got a health bar. You don't have a whole bunch of spells or skills up there. You know, right click is you know, holding right click will bring up your shield, and holding and using left click to swing. But doing combinations as well is something that's going to be in the game. So that way, how you move your sword and what maneuver you do is going to be intricate into how your character acts and swings. So that's quite different than what most people are used to. But then again, if you play something like Black Desert, you're already somewhat familiar with the system kind of like that. That if you do, you know, 2 right, 1 left, 1 right, you know, on a mouse button, or maybe, and they haven't said, but maybe also with some, you know, combinations in with like Q and E and W ASD or whatever, that the way that you're going to battle will be somewhat, you know, it will dramatically change what happens, instead of you sitting there going 1 2 3 4 5 4 3 2 3 2 1 1, you know. And that to me is really, really cool, because what they want in the combat system, along with the jousting system in general, is that they want people focused on the action of the game and not a whole bunch of hot bars and timers on the screen.
You are 100% on point, and it has been confirmed what you said. There are going to be multiple different combinations, and it's not going to be like you said, you press 1 and boom, something happens. There's going to be a lot of different elements involved in the way combat is done. And as we're watching this video, this is a very short development project where they, in PAX East, they wanted to show a little bit off, but I'm telling you guys right now, hold on to your seats, wait till PAX West. When you see the jousting in action, you're going to see some of the elements that Arius discussed with the combinations, and the different dynamic elements that are going to be there are just going to be amazing. I mean, we're going to see all these things that you're talking about in that jousting demo. And there's nothing, I don't think there's nothing really out there that is going to be like it.
And from a remark made here in Twitch chat, Elena Strongbow said, if I swing a sword, I want it to be different than if I swing a sword while crouched. And that's absolutely what's going to be happening in this game. Absolutely. You know, the position of your body and what you press is going to make a difference. And then combine that with what we're seeing on the screen right now is their kind of parkour system. And they're really going to get a load of this. So, and for those of you that have played like Assassin's Creed, you know, this is again something that you typically don't see in MMOs. Now, right now, you can tell what they can grab onto because for simplification, for ease of noticing, the wood has like a white top, like a white paint on the top of it. And that's intentional so that people can see what all they can grab onto. But you're going to be able to go through puzzles, if you will, you know, find your way through a particular system, fighting mobs, because this is a dungeon-esque area that they have been working on for one of the main parts of the game. That even though every server, all the lands are going to be different physically, there will be certain key things that will exist across all servers, like dungeons, certain key places, you could say, that will exist. It's all super fascinating with just the sheer amount of, I mean, the combat system, the movement system, I haven't even shown them the video yet of like the swinging, but they're about to hit the zip line in a minute. You know, and this is a very slow run through of this place that they had built for PAX and to show off at PAX, but they're continuing to build on this area. But there's a quick run through to see how fast people can actually go through this. And in another video that I may show in the background later, you'll actually get to see some of that and get to see some people die whenever they fail at attempting. But yes, so I guess though we should go back to the county itself as a whole. How many counts? How many people do we currently have that are looking to come into that are obligated themselves to our county?
Well, starting from the top, and I just spoke with Para a couple of days ago. She apologizes that she couldn't make it today. She wanted to really come in, but she had some personal things to deal with. But me and Para are still completely on board. Underneath us, or partnered with us, I should say, are our barons and mayors, which we have 9 of right now. We want to keep that at a level of 8 because that's the minimum amount of barons per county that has been, you know, announced, quote unquote. They say 8, but it could be a little plus or minus, you know, quite a few. But I doubt it's going to be anything lower than 8. So we have 8 or 9 barons and mayors, and we have about 30-40 citizens to add to that number, which, you know, most of them are sleepers. They're all kind of just waiting for the next big thing. But we are in communication with a lot of the people, and they're very excited, and they're very much so a part of the community. So we're hoping that during exposition, we will actually have anywhere from 50 to 100 player characters that we have had in advance coming into the county. And that's not counting other player characters that might just join on the whim at that time.
And to help also clarify some stuff, not only are you a count, but you are everything below a count as well, right? So you're also a mayor of your own town, which happens to be the county seat, right? The head of the county
Absolutely.
is your town, and and so you've got that, and you have all these other. So if we have 9 other barons and mayors, then there's like 10. There's 10 towns or towns slash strongholds or baronies, that players can choose from. And do they need to seek out a particular town that they want to live in? That they need to find a particular mayor if they want to join something, or and then again, if they wanted to, they could just come live in your town itself, your large county seat, right? If they wanted to
Yeah.
come in.
We're at this time, we're not taking any specific applications from members that say, well, there's no restriction that says you have to join this town. Anyone will have access to joining any town they want, anytime they want to. And if you change your mind, and if you come over to my town and there's no elves there and you want to hang out with the elves, well, no one's going to stop you, and no one should stop you from moving into Arius's town if you want to, become a part of his story or his dynamic gameplay element that he's going to be adding into the game. So we kind of, the way that we're doing the county right now is we're just saying, join. It doesn't matter where you want to live, what you want to do. Let's all just get together at the county level for now, and when the time comes, we'll be able to refine, your interests in the game and what you want to do and where you want to be and how you want to do it is completely up to you. I couldn't stop it if I wanted to. If I did, then I wouldn't be a good count, and my ass would get kicked out of my seat.
That statement alone, though, led to a conversation. We haven't even talked really about roles of what people have. I mean, we have head rangers, we have a militia of guardsmen, we have cooks, we have and we have blacksmiths of all different types. We've got armor blacksmiths, we've got tool blacksmiths, we've got the guy that makes the horseshoes kind of thing. You've got tailors, and in theory, we could have animal tamers, we could have all these kinds of things. Because this game is being a sandbox, no one is tied down to a particular class as others may see it. So if you want to come in and you want to be, a scribe, and you just want to be educated, and maybe you want to write stuff or do contracts, or maybe you want to help the count, or to help whoever, to help local market people that are buy, sell, and trade their goods. That these traders might need someone to help them with contracts. That's completely possible. Maybe you want to be a trader. Maybe you want to be a fighter. Maybe you want to get in there and just whoop some ass. Maybe you want to be a bow and arrow guy. Maybe you want to maybe you want to just be a local sheriff over one of the towns, like local guards, instead of part of the greater militia of the king's army. Or maybe you want to be a part of the king's army, and that's a whole nother level of which you can obtain within the game, because it's a complete sandbox, and everything. It doesn't just roll downhill. Everything can roll uphill. You can climb into these positions with these talents and these skills that you pick up in the game.
Oh yeah. And you mentioned earlier, we have a very diverse community. We have people who want to be herbalists. We have people, multiple blacksmiths and whatnot. But I think what is the most interesting to me
I'll answer
is
your
the
question in a moment,
hybrid
Red.
models that you'll actually be able
Welcome to
to
the stream, by
birth
the way.
out of the decisions you make. Like you mentioned, you could be a fighter or you could be a trader. But what's more interesting is you could be a fighter that is a trader who is also a politician or a scribe. So there's going to be a way for you to create hybrid models, and there's really and I don't know for sure if it's going to be possible, but from what we're hearing, you could have a fighter who's a trader and a healer, and having these combinations is going to be able to allow you to do multiple things, and it's going to be skill based. So as you put more time into fighting, more your fighting will progress more. Or if you want to stop for a while and put more time into healing, you'll be able to progress into healing. So that also allows a lot of different hybrid models within the game.
That we have a question in chat, by the way. So Don't Blame Red asks, how do you see the moves you can do while fighting? Well, we aren't quite there yet. We don't know. I'm just showing there a quick video of one of the parkour moves, and I'm going to pull up the video of the fighting, one of the initial fighting styles. Now, I want to note that this may seem very, very, very slow, but remember that what's going on is greater, that there are combinations going on, and this is incredibly early combat that we were seeing, well over a year and a half old, I think. Yeah, it's about a year and a half old. So even since then, we've seen new fighting within the dungeon area, which I'm going to play the quicker run through of that dungeon upcoming soon while we wait, and you'll see a little bit of that fighting there. But the jousting thing that Santana's talking about, that's going to be really, really cool, and we'll see some more about the direct combat. When did you said it was upcoming at the next PAX?
Yeah, I actually want to answer that with a short answer. So what the design team said is the way the experience is going to work specifically is you're going to be on your horse and you're going to be looking at the monitor through a view where you see your other opponent in front of you. And there's going to be some form of a reticle that they mentioned, or some way for you to determine where that reticle is, whether it's apparent or not. And kind of as you start moving closer and closer to your opponent, you'll be able to position your lance in different ways to do different moves. And right when you get to the point where you're going to strike, the view is kind of going to zoom in, and you're going to feel like you're actually getting up into the guy's face and bam, hitting your lance into your opponent.
Another question that's being asked in chat is the fighting is only melee, or is it some kind of spell magic fighting?
You can answer that, Arius.
Okay, so all right. This is a high fantasy world with a low fantasy cover. It looks low fantasy from the outside view. There you can see some of the parkour backflipping, by the way. This is really old video. But magic is incredibly uncommon, and people fear it. Because if you want to talk for a moment about balance and unbalance, sometimes you get into a game and you have a different class that's just way too powerful. They're way overbalanced. Well, magic in its true right, it is incredibly overbalanced and can be incredibly destructive. And that's why, it gets toned down in video games typically, because if you don't, you just destroy everything. Don't take this the wrong way, but not everybody is going to have magic. In fact, only 1/5 of the population in the beginning. Let me note that, because that implies something else later. But in the beginning, only about 5% of the population will have an inherent talent for some sort of magic or special ability related to magic. And here's the trick.
Correct.
People won't even know they have it until
Correct.
some event happens within game. And if you were a player who has the entire time possessed the aptitude for fire magic, but you have always been a tailor and you've sat in your house your entire lifetime in the past 12 months in game and you haven't used it, and there is a need for that fire magic that comes up with a group or raid, then actually if you haven't used it and it's nearly expired for you, the game, not the GMs, the game will calculate that you're not using that, and you've lost that potential, and it could be taken away from your character and you never even knew it, and it would be given to someone who in that group that really needs it because it's part of, say, one of the major events of the story going on within the global game itself. Not, I don't mean like a squabble between a couple of guys from a couple of different kingdoms. I mean like the actual storyline that has been placed in by the GMs. Not to mention the storylines that we create, because we're
10-year story.
Yeah, part of that 10-year story, it could be given to someone like that. But mages are feared because in concept, there's been talks about a single mage could potentially rain down, if they have the fire of like, if they have the ability to do a meteor shower, they could rain down a meteor shower across a town, and that single character decimate it all, and all those players' homes and everything like that. So how do you
and now he's the most wanted person in the land.
Right, and now he's the most wanted person in the world, and they're like, well, that's completely unbalanced, that's so messed up. And they're also like, well, there's not also you don't sound like you're planning a whole lot of end raid content or anything like that. Well, to answer question 2, please see question 1. Because if you are that mage, or maybe you've become a vampire, possible in game, or maybe you've become a lich, possible in game. I'm not saying it's likely, I'm saying though that it is possible. If you become one of these things, you are going to be very, very wanted and hunted and sought after, because you will now have the power of the raid monster on a server, and an entire town or a kingdom.
A player becomes it.
Yeah, you as that character, as the player or as the character, may very well be the target of the ire of an entire county or kingdom within the game itself, that they will come and try to raid you and figure out where you live. And do you live underground? Do you live up in the mountains? And how do they get to you? And what kind of traps have you set for them? And if you're like undead, what kind of ghouls and goblins and other weird freaking things do you have? But most people will not have magic inherently. Now, again, vampirism and lichism is not necessarily inherent.
It'll be very rare.
Right, and it's not inherent. And also, they have not said that artifact or magical items will be rare. So there may be more of, we might see a peppering of magical artifacts that you could hold an amulet and do something. That would probably be more common than you having an innate ability to cast a fireball, or maybe even breathe underwater.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to add to what you said, Arius, if you log out, you're still in game.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about that. But so yes, whenever players
OPC
go,
scripting also.
Yeah, whenever you go offline, your character remains in-game and continues to do so. Potentially also werewolves, yes. But guys, we need to, Santana, I do need to go over and switch over to D.
Yep.
You feel free to come over if you would like.
Yep, we'll do that.
And I want to thank you so much for being here.
Yep, I'll see you there.
All right. And that was Santana here. And if you're interested in joining into our into this particular group, we can get you information on the Discord and our forum posts, and that information, all this information, will be at the end of these 2 interviews tonight. All right, so now we're going to get to talk to our king. So let me come over here.
Thanks,
and
Arius.
No problem, man. And note to D that there we are, and that we're here. And Santana may be sneaking in here or there or later, but we were just leaving off with, and I looked at the time and I saw it was 7 o'clock, about NPCs, or OPCs actually. But I'll get back into that later. But ladies and gentlemen, I like to, and I will never pronounce this correctly, so we always refer to this person as King D, because that's what he told us to call him. And take it away, D.
Actually, we just go by D.
Yeah, not King D, but I say King.
Everybody kind of like goes with the King. I want to make it explicitly clear that the Monarch package for us was purchased in order to be able to put the community together, and have a stable home for the community versus any kind of egotistical kind of like a desire that I might have to be called Your Majesty, Your Highness, or King D or whatever. So although the game
D.
itself has naturally the feudal system of the king, the dukes, the counts, the barons, the mayors, etc., within our community, everybody has a voice. I wouldn't say that everybody's equal, obviously, in terms of what they contribute to the community, but we dispense with those kind of titles.
Everyone may have an opinion. It's just that how much weight your opinion may have. Is that what you're saying? Kind of. Everyone could. Yeah. Anyway,
I think it depends upon how much weight the opinion itself has.
That's true. Right.
Rather than who is making it.
Right.
I would much rather have and I will accept and follow up on a good opinion from somebody who the only thing they've pledged is $30 for a spark of life, versus let's say if a duke who pledged $3,500 or $5,000 made a stupid recommendation, I'm not going to be following his just because
he spent more real life money,
just
right?
because he spent more money. It's we kind of like have a balance that we go by.
Right. So if is it pronounced Dleatherus? Is that close?
I guess I pronounce it Dleatherus.
Dleatherus
is how I pronounce it, and it goes by D. It goes back for those that might have a quick interest. I'll try and be brief about it. I used to teach at a school, 3rd through 6th grade. I used to run the computer lab. It was in a very, very high ritzy neighborhood here in Southern California, and I used to ride there on my motorbike every day, full on chaps, leathers, fingerless gloves, the whole 9 yards. And the kids had caught on to kind of like just calling me Mr. Leather, and they'd be like, "Hi, Mr. Leather, how you doing?" And it was all kind of like, all fun and cool. And this was, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, much before the internet was coming along. And the parents who did not know me would just glare at me. It was like, who the hell is this Mr. Leather, and what is he doing around our kids, kind of thing. So when I first started gaming and everything, I came up with, I think it was 98. I was like, oh, what do I want for my handle? Oh, fine, I'll use Mr. Leather. And I started getting all kinds of unsolicited
oh my
propositions and everything like
oh
that.
My
I was like, I need to change this, but it would still be cool to give a nod to the kids, so we'll call it Dleatherus, and it kind of like, and that's where the name came from.
So he goes from being a leather daddy to a king. I mean, wow.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Great.
Because a leather daddy is not one of the things I am.
So wow, what an interesting introduction into but yes, D happens to be our king, and actually for Santana and myself, and Santana wanted me to poke you and say if you wouldn't mind bringing him down at some point. But D is our king. He is also we live within the King's Duchy, I believe, is where we're going to end up, which means that he's also effectively our Duke. And on top of that, so Santana, so it's the Royal Duchy is what we would call that, and that's pretty cool. So I'm a citizen of my own town, and within that I'm a citizen within my county under Santana, and I'm a citizen within my duchy, within your duchy, and I'm a citizen of your kingdom. And all of this playing together, this is really, really neat on the levels that this gets to go into the game, and all the hats that you must wear yourself on putting this together. But so what exactly though is your role in Chronicles that you're doing?
Gosh, that is so.
That's a big one,
isn't it? Wide kind of topic that
I do everything.
Yeah, to try and narrow it down is amazing. They are from SBS, from Soulbound Studios. They've basically said that just the kind of like managerial part of running a kingdom will take you around about a total of around about, I think they mentioned 20 hours a week. And it kind of like it kind of piggybacks, I think, and I could be off a little bit on the figures, but like if you're a baron or a mayor, it'll basically take you around about 2 hours a week to run your settlement in terms of the UI. We haven't seen the UI yet, so whether that's what you do to attract more NPCs or set tax levels or whatever, we're not fully sure. But 2 hours is what they've said. They figure that it will take around about 5 hours or so to be a count. And when you're a count, you get kind of like, you know, a barony or a mayor as part of your count package. So you get your settlement within that county. So basically, they figure it'll be about 5 hours a week to run a county. And that takes into account that 2 hours will be for running your own settlement as a baron or a mayor, and 3 hours will be for running your county. Then it hops up to a duchy, which they, I think, if I'm not mistaken, said would be around about 12 hours. And that 12 hours is the 2 hours of you running your barony or your mayor, the 3 hours for running your county, and then around about 7 hours for running all of the other 23 counties that will be within your duchy. And then the king thing is up on the next level. So obviously I'll be spending a lot of time doing that. One of the nice things that SBS has built into it is the whether you're a baron or a mayor or a king, you can delegate. My understanding is pretty much almost all of those kind of responsibilities to trusted individuals. So if you don't like certain aspects of, like, let's say, running an economy or developing the community, you know, through that UI, you can have, you know, your right hand or your spouse in game or whatever it is you want. You can have them do that for you.
And all of this stems from, what do you do in game? And this is kind of like you're an administrative figure as a king. And from that level, you administer over all of these things. That does take so the king doesn't just sit on his throne and in game and just be like, oh, I want the. You actually do have a level of administration that you are committing to whenever you have such a role within the video game.
Correct. Yes, and you know, we'll see. I'm not opposed to, you know, sharing those responsibilities with other people if other people are kind of like as it, or if not more qualified, you know, than myself to do them. As I said, kind of like going back just a little step, the primary goal of getting the kingdom was to basically secure a relatively stable home for our community that we hope to develop.
Okay. So if I can go back a little bit further, what your gaming background, what have you played or what have you done over the years, and what was it that brought you to Chronicles of Elyria?
Wow. Where to start? I guess I was always kind of like geeky on the, you know, even before there were MMOs and before it was online, you know, in terms of playing just solo games. Some people might, you know, remember Zork and various other kind of like text-based games where you had to draw the map out on graph paper and everything like that. And I first got into an MMO back in 1998. I wasn't aware that it came out when it did in 97. Otherwise, I would have joined immediately then. But I joined Ultima Online, and I played that for quite a number of years, probably 3-4 years, and just became hooked on it. Just this whole escapism and just having fun and being able to connect with people online and basically, you know, being able to switch it off, you know, whenever you wanted to or you had to do your other stuff was to me, it was just fascinating. It sucked me in, and I've been hooked on MMOs ever since. I left Ultima Online from kind of like what I would say playing full time to just maintaining the accounts and occasionally checking in to go and play. The next game I played, I think, was EverQuest 2,
Hmm.
and didn't like it as much because of the lack of PvP. And so when Dark Age of Camelot came out, I got, man, that was I just loved that one. That was more than just in although you had factions in Ultima Online, the PvP in Dark Age of Camelot was ongoing. I mean, you could just PvP 24/7 if you wanted to, and that was amazing to me. But it lacked some of the stuff that I enjoyed in EverQuest 2, and it definitely lacked a lot of the stuff that I enjoyed in Ultima Online. Even though Ultima Online was kind of like relatively bad graphics. Darkfall was the next real big game that I got into, and I was part of that pre-launch community for about 2 years, and following the development of the game, etc., and enjoyed the PvP in that, but my machine or my connection or whatever didn't allow me to play that as much as I wanted to. I've also played, Darkfall 2, Unholy Wars. I think I've played a bit of Dungeons and Dragons online just for kind of like the nostalgic thing. Their PvP in that game isn't good at all, but there's certain aspects of that I used to enjoy tremendously. Naval Action is a game that isn't fully released yet, but I've got about 2,500 hours, almost 3,000 now in.
My goodness! Wow.
Life is Feudal is another game that I've really enjoyed. Although I finally gave up playing because I just got tired of their little 64-man servers, and they tend to have a lifespan that lasts about 2 months, 3 if you're really lucky, before the drama kicks in and you basically have to reset and wipe the server and start all over again. And that's also a game that I have about 3,000 hours in. So
I can see over time that you started off with a game that was very sandboxy, and where EQ2 lacked the PvP. There was a bit of sandbox missing from that game as well, obviously. But though the housing was nice, but you keep moving back toward that sandbox type of game, and then all the way to Life is Feudal.
Definitely so. I mean, I also I played EVE Online for
Yeah.
quite a while, but
Big sandbox.
I'm the kind of person that when I get it, I can't play, and this is just my own nature. I'm envious of people that can play a whole multitude of games and be interested in many of them at the same time. It takes me a long time to master just one kind of thing, so I tend to stay with that. But I tried EVE Online for a while and thoroughly enjoyed that. But I got hooked into that so badly that I had 16 POSs, player-owned stations out in space that basically needed tending 24/7. To
Right.
This one would have this ready at such a time, and you had to make sure that you picked that stuff up there to have it over to the next one, etc. And it's like I had fucking alarm clocks going off, during the night, so that I could get. And I was like, you know what, it's too much now. It's like
you grew so big that you needed an army just to help you get through the day, right?
Basically, yeah. So
you were doing it yourself. Yeah, alarm clocks. Yeah, I remember the days of alarm clocks just for that 2 a.m. skill change that's going to happen in the training queue, because there was no queue. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we also, I'd started off with the Elder Scrolls games, again, way back when they were very almost like 8-bit, 16-bit graphic kind of stuff. Did the whole Daggerfall Arena and Morrowind, which was obviously, a huge step up from their previous releases. And when they stated that they were going to be doing Elder Scrolls Online, it was like, oh my freaking god. It's like, you got to be kidding. It's, it's what everybody who'd played Skyrim and Morrowind and everything they were just dying for it. And then when it was announced that Matt Farrar and Paul Sage, who were two of the devs for Dark Age of Camelot, were going to be leading ZeniMax, which was the studio that was awarded the development from Bethesda for the development of Elder Scrolls Online. It was like, you got to be kidding me even more. This is a match made in heaven. You're going to have frickin' Dark Age of Camelot meets Elder Scrolls Online, and this game is just going to kick ass. It's going to be the best thing that ever happened. Nobody will ever play WoW anymore. And then they released it and it fizzled. They just did so many things so poorly that they would never recover from it. I think there's still kind of like some people playing it, and it's more of a, I wouldn't call it a niche game, but it certainly never lived up to its potential that it could have. They could have had 20, 30 million players following that game.
Yep. And what brought you into Chronicles itself? How'd you hear about it, I guess?
Chronicles of Elyria? Yeah, I heard about it, I think, from somebody while I was playing Life is Feudal. And it was just while we're freaking knocking each other's heads off and everything like that and chatting with each other, it was like, oh, hey, have you heard about this game? And I was like, no. And I looked at it early last year, I think around about March, April, and read through it. And it was like, nah, this permadeath thing, even though I've played permadeath both in Dungeons and Dragons Online, and we even had a Life is Feudal permadeath server, it didn't kind of appeal to me for some reason at the time. And so I didn't pursue it any further. And then somebody else mentioned it, that they're having the Kickstarter, and they got very excited about it. So I went back and I revisited it, and it was like, wow, do I really, want to get into this? And I've been disappointed with pre-launch communities before, whether it was Darkfall 2, Elder Scrolls Online. You see people kind of like get vested, although we didn't have to. They weren't group funded, but I pledged around about $1,000 into Shroud of the Avatar, thinking that would be the next best thing, because Richard Garriott, developer of freaking Ultima Online, and he billed that as being, this is going to be the next Ultima Online, guys, except it's with modern graphics and a modern engine, and you guys are going to love it. And I followed that, and as I say, I bought into it, donated a bit of money, and I just felt that he sold the community out, just in terms of how he changed things. And it just, it was going to be kind of like, a really nice sandbox kind of a situation. And then it didn't become that. He changed it. And then it's like almost every week it was like, wow, guys, you need to check out our cash shop because we're selling this, and this is the best thing they'll ever be. And it's only up for a limited period of time. And, when it's gone, it's gone. And so, everybody would excitedly buy them, whether they were druid trees or whatever the case might be. And then, the next week they bring out something actually better. And it was like, oh, shit, I just spent that last week, but I really want this. And it just, I can't say that it's a cash grab game, but it started smelling like that to me. It was like, just bring out a menu of everything you have available, and people can choose where to spend their money, not that they kind of like get buyer's remorse and regret later on. Although I think they listened a bit to the community where you could actually cash some items back in again for credits to spend on other stuff if you wanted to. So at least they finally did that in the end.
And they've also worked to ensure that anything that was collectible remained collectible within the game, and then that allowed for and I don't know how I agree with this, but many of our viewers are Shroud of the Avatar players, myself included. But there's oftentimes about the money in the cash shop, and that, well, these are technically things that people don't need but they may want, and there's a means to often make something of mechanical equivalence within game. It may not look as nice, but but those items that are collectibles, and in some cases they're now proving a return, as some people are actually beginning to sell some of those items that they've collected several years ago at this point, and now making twice as much, as what they initially paid for the item. So,
Yeah,
so
I
that
did. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying, yeah, that has proven to be something that is possible in the in that community, and continues on today.
Yeah, I had I again I didn't follow it once I stopped kind of like playing it and following it, but I did have I think it was some special elven archer bow and armor and everything like that wasn't available in game, and I was actually able to sell that for quite a bit. And if your guys are Shroud of the Avatar players, and I believe, did I sell that to you?
You did actually, yes. I
That
bought
was
it.
you I sold that to. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. And there's, if I've got other stuff. I've got, I don't know, fucking hats and masks that you used to get from participating in things. Just give me a shout. We'll work something out for you to have you happy.
Right. Yep. I could put people in contact with you if you'd like.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I don't want to make a profit out of them. I don't even mind taking a little bit of a loss on them if somebody can get some fun and some happiness out of them. I think I've got a druid house. I've got various basements and cellars and wall packages and God knows what else.
but on the part of back to Chronicles for a second. Sorry. Um, all right. So as we have the kings and the dukes and the barons and the counts and the mayors, how does the interaction? I mean, we know that like in theory, like counts report to dukes and dukes report to the king, and but how does that really work on do you think will this work on a day to day for your common character that just happens in game? Is the kingdom, and is the maintaining of the kingdom, how much of this is something that needs to be on their mind? No, with the exception of always, obviously people need to defend. Do you feel that that just talking about this, because I don't want people to get overwhelmed and think that if they come into the game that there might be all these responsibilities that they themselves have, these responsibilities that you have, you inflicted upon yourself, right? Based on you starting off at your particular tier, and same for the dukes and the counts and stuff. But do you feel that this game will be easy enough for just commoner people, as players come into the game, to just kind of feel that they can relax and that it's a home, and that that this will be a good place for them?
Absolutely. I don't think that, for the most part, I don't think that the average player will even get involved, in stuff that kind of like might happen on a county, duchy, or kingdom level. There really isn't any need for them to. I really see it as one of the things that was amazingly fun about Ultima Online is you could really make that game whatever you wanted to be. If you wanted to be a scribe and make books, that's what you could do and write lore. If you wanted to be a treasure hunter, you could be a
Great
treasure
question,
hunter.
Red.
If you
I'll bring
wanted
that
to,
up.
fish on the ocean or be a blacksmith. I mean, they had in that game, in Britannia, they used to have, it was difficult to become legendary in anything. When the game first came out, and you would have these legendary blacksmiths that would be setting up shop at the kind of like public blacksmith there in Britannia, and there would be a line of 20 people waiting to get their armor repaired or something built or crafted for them. And then when you think that in Chronicles of Elyria, only 1% of the people at any given time can be legendary in that particular profession, it's, there's going to be an ongoing demand for that. There's going to be one of the things about a lot of MMOs is you get to legendary in blacksmithing, and it's like, oh, cool, now I can get to legendary in tinkering, and now I can get to legendary in sword fighting and treasure hunting. I mean, I had God knows how many toons in Ultima Online, and they were all maxed out in everything.
We haven't even really discussed about that. Could you explain what you mean by a limited amount of people who will be legendary, for example? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, basically, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so the numbers that I'm going to be giving you, I am pulling off of the top of my head. They do come from a dev journal that if you visit the Chronicles of Elyria official website, they can get them, and I can actually probably get an image. Are you able to put an image up on the screen,
Yes, I am.
Arius, if
Yep.
I was to?
Yep.
Can you give me literally a minute to find it, and I'll drag it
Sure.
into Discord for you?
Yeah, and I know what you're referring to, obviously, but to those out there that may not be aware, there are caps.
Exactly.
Well, it's not like it's a cap on your character per se, but there's a mathematical. It's really more of a mathematical possibility, right? And that someone that dedicates all of their time to a particular craft will advance only so far in a lifetime, in theory. And then as you continue to advance your character through ages, and from, like, if you're a blacksmith and you make your kid a blacksmith and you become that kid, and then you continue at a third generation or a fourth generation and so forth, you could end up with like only a small number and a very small percent will ever be at a certain level. Like 100% can be novice in a skill. Everybody's going to be novice, and then 90% will be of a particular of the next grade up. And think of it as a 10 grade skill, and eventually only like there'll be a small 10% group of people, for example, that will really ever be at the top of that craft. If that, and that's somewhat dependent on assuming that there will be players that will push themselves that far in the first place. But then you just kind of lower the cap, and still mathematically, the odds are going to even out anyway.
That's correct. That's correct. And sorry, because I'm still trying to.
That was an early journal, somewhere around 6 or 9 or somewhere in that area,
Yeah,
I think.
I had actually made a graph that I was trying to find that that I would be able to show to people, and it would make a little bit more sense. But we might have to go on without it. I think you did a very good job of explaining it, and that is, it's like it will take you. They figure that that your character, if you play it in a relatively conservative manner, his lifetime will last approximately between 8 to 14 months. And that basically it will take, if he's a dedicated blacksmith, it will take him probably 3 lifetimes to get to legendary if he is like 100% devoted to it. And so it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you will never kind of like get bored, for want of a better word, or at least you'll never max out all of your characters. It's not like, okay, I got my guy up to legendary, let's work on the next part. It's an ongoing development. It's like, let's say that, just for easy math, that legendary blacksmithing is attained when you reach a skill level of 100. It might be that in your first lifetime you get up to skill of, let's say, 60, and you die, and you basically, not everything resets back to 0. If you start following blacksmithing again, then basically you inherit this from your previous soul. And so instead of starting at 0, you might start at 30 now. And instead of, maxing out at 60 in that life, you might max out at 90. Yeah. And become a grandmaster. And then the next lifetime you might start at 60, and towards the end of it is when you become legendary. And so there's this ongoing progression, but you have to keep at it. You can't just say, okay, that's that toon done, I'm moving on now to tinkering.
Right.
Because as soon as you start neglecting blacksmithing, you're going to drop down, and somebody else, the game engine itself calculates out how many smiths there are and what they're doing. And if you don't upkeep your skill, you're going to drop back down to grandmaster, and then master, then journeyman, etc. So it's an ongoing thing, but to me, this is intriguing. I mean, these are mechanics that will once again, instead of everybody having 10 tunes that are maxed in everything, and hold on, I'll just log in my legendary tailor and then my legendary tinker, and we'll make you that thing you were needing. This goes back to having a line of 20 people in front of the legendary blacksmith, and they're sought after, and there is, you've actually truly earned and deserved something, and you're recognized for it, and you're sought after. I think it's going to be brilliant.
Yep. I think all that brings us into, and there was someone asking about a question in chat about can someone be a rogue, or are they bound to something or someone? I think they mean rogue from being bound to a particular kingdom. I would say that people can make choices in their life that could have them a pariah of wherever they start. But all the land in the game is technically always under the rule of some king in the game. That is a hardcore fact. But if you don't recognize the king, or you want to live on the outskirts and be a pariah, then that's fine. But you're not bound to someone, like, as in a sense of servitude so much. And if the king walks up to you and says, shine my shoes, yes, you can say fuck off, but there may be consequences for those actions. It's like, who, in a sense, who's a bigger fish, in that situation. But I don't think the implication of kings or being bound to someone is really what you're going to find in your day-to-day life in that game, unless you make that something within your day-to-day game, because you kind of have to put yourself in that position.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that how we've set up our particular kingdom will allow people to kind of to have as much flexibility as possible, kind of like in a I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like we look upon it kind of like as a bottom-up society. Although, again, the game kind of like has it as a top-down in terms of it's feudal, and the king rules over the dukes, and the dukes rule over the counts, over the barons and mayors, over the settlements, etc. That's the game hierarchy. The reality of it is that you're not going to have a healthy kingdom unless you have healthy duchies. And you're not going to have healthy duchies unless you have healthy counties. And the counties, in turn, aren't going to be healthy unless they've got healthy barons and mayors, who in turn need to have healthy, not just their own town, but the small settlements and the hamlets and the villages that help support that town. So the structure kind of like has to be tailored to, at least the way that we see it for our community, is that we have to create fun and enough flexibility on the individual, the group, and the hamlet level, for that then to move up to the village level, to the town level, to the barons, mayors, counts, dukes, king, etc. So it's kind of, it's a bottom-up hierarchy. It's not that they make the decisions or everything, but the focus isn't upon, what silk clothes the king is going to wear today. The focus is upon what can we do to make this a better playing experience for the people who are the foundation of this entire community.
And that kind of, finally, we're getting to the kingdom itself. Like, I guess, so let me try to pinpoint this down so I don't make it too big of a question, is from a perspective, what can you tell us about the kingdom? The name of the kingdom, the name of the duchy, the where we live. How many dukes are there currently in the kingdom? What is the what kind of an area or kingdom are you looking to claim whenever you get to the section? What kind of lands are you looking for? Or I know that doesn't mean you're going to get it. I'm just saying, what kind of a kingdom are you looking for within the game and in the way down? I know that's a big question, but trying to curb it.
There were lots of questions there, so let me answer the last one first, because for me that's the easiest one to do. And that is, we're not looking for a particular biome or tribe. We have always made it explicitly clear that we are a community-centric organization, and that our relationships with each other as gamers and players is more important than whether we're going to be Kipix or Broodveer or Crothy or Genoa or whatever the case might be. We also, knowing that we might not be picking the first kingdom, we might get, to choose the third or even the fourth kingdom, is that it can't be based upon, they didn't pick that tribe and we like them, and then we pick that one just because we like it, when actually from a strategic point of view, in terms of being able to protect ourselves and defend ourselves against economic and military warfare, and also having the ability to wage it back in return, if another biome might have been a better strategic choice, even if it wasn't kind of like, quote, our tribe choice. I feel that saying that, wow, if we did have a choice, we'd kind of like be Broodveer or we'd be Genoa or Kipik or whatever, is going to turn away a certain number of people right from the get-go, because that's not what they're looking for. And then if we don't get that particular biome, it'll turn away a bunch of people that were staying in the hope that that was what we end up getting. So I view that tribes are immensely important in the game, but I don't view it as being immensely important to have to pick one, to pre-select one at this moment in time so far out.
To the community out there, I just want to clarify that the Broodveer, the Genoa, the Kipik that he speaks of, these tribes. These are effectively, from a certain standpoint, they're effectively what we have in substitute of races in the game, instead of having elves or dwarves or whatever the case may be. Each one of these tribes is kind of a reflection of that, but all of us in the game are tribes of Mon. M-A-N-N is what we're using. And these tribes of Mon has, kind of mutated, if you will, into these different tribes based upon the environments in which the tribes have lived, and which we've kind of done basically here on Earth in realistic ways. But some of these are a little bit more unrealistic. It's like the Kipik have pointed ears, and they're very, very short elfish character, hobbity elfish characters that live in trees, right? They have towns up in giant red trees. Therefore, they must be small humans. But the thing is that all of us being Mon, or humans, effectively human, is that we can all interbreed, which is a whole nother level of genetics. Literally, there are genetics in this game, and whenever you have a child, your child has traits that are both from the mother and the father biologically to the child. And if you go to play your own kid, you will see that your character creation, or if you give the key code to a friend of yours to play your own kid, they will have a slider that will be locked between a minimum and a maximum based on stats, based on their tribes. So we want to be able to encompass all the different types of, quote, races that are tribes within the game, within the kingdom itself, so that everyone feels welcome. And we're not going to say, just this kind of people here. That's not what we're doing. Is that sorry for taking over there for that.
Oh no, definitely, and I fully agree with that. It's like, in most MMOs, you get to choose whether to, let's say, low to mid fantasy. Am I going to play an orc? Am I going to play an elf, or whatever it might be? a werewolf or a shapeshifter or etc. And here, and they give you kind of like an advantage on starting stats, and you can then later add on to them. But other than kind of like it being kind of like what an individual person might align themselves with in terms of that's who they want to portray in game. That's about it. It's almost like a cosmetic thing. I mean, I could be you know even in Elder Scrolls Online, I I started off with a Bosmer as a rogue because they're small and they're agile and everything like that. But my second character that I rolled the biggest, largest, fattest orc that I possibly could, and I made him into a rogue as well, and he was every bit as successful as the as the one that was, quote, "This is meant to be your rogue character," and
Right.
so other than cosmetics, it really didn't matter that much, and I really feel that what they're doing here in Chronicles of Elyria is it's not that, wow, you're going to be locked into your biome. That might be more so the case maybe for the Yoru, which isn't a tribe that'll be present at game launch anyway. But you have 8 tribes, of which 6 of them pretty much live in fairly relatively interchangeable biomes, as in you will always have an advantage living in your home biome, and if you go to another biome, you might have certain disadvantages. But the particular ones, I think, are the Weird, who live in the deserty area, and if I'm not mistaken, is it the Drask or the Taurusk that are in the swamp? I keep forgetting. I think it's the Drask.
I can't remember for the life of me, but
And
yeah.
yeah, and for example, the Weird have dry lung, and so they don't do well when they go into a more humid kind of a biome. They don't they can't function well physically, and likewise with, I think it's the Dras. They have wet lung and they can't go to arid areas because they start rasping and kind of like having problems just breathing, etc. So if you take those 2 away, the other 6 tribes are fairly interchangeable.
Yep.
And will be adaptable in the biome. So I think we'll get a very nice representation of all of the tribes if we're fortunate enough and to be able to get one of those kind of, let's say, more temperate biomes.
So back on the topic of the Kingdom of Boardwall, Boardwell. I gotta say it right.
Yeah.
Boardwall. How many dukes do we currently have? How many duchy do we have, I should say?
We have 8 duchies, and those 8 duchies are basically governed by 7 dukes, because one of the duchies, which happens to be mine, is a grand duchy, which means it's double the size of a regular duchy. And we then have the Duchy of Ceruleum, we have the Duchy of Trollfell, we have the Duchy of Tyrnus Rin, we have the Duchy of Sidrelia, and we have the Duchy, did I mention Trollfell?
You did.
Singraven. Singraven is the other one, which is an up-and-coming one. They're all kind of like, they all have their own kind of like flavor, just like each tribe has its own kind of like flavor and what they want to do. Each duchy has its own flavor. And one of the things that we've done in particular in the Kingdom of Boardwall, and Boardwall basically is ancient Saxon for shield wall, because we feel that no matter what our differences are and squabbles and things like that will always occur in a larger online community. When the war horns sound and everything, we set all of that aside and we basically lock shields and become a shield wall, and we each protect the other person. And it doesn't matter if 2 weeks ago you were upset because one was bashing on Trump and the other one was bashing on Hillary, or one was saying this about atheists or that about Catholics or whatever the case. None of that matters. It's, those are intrinsic and very important parts of our real lives. But, and we bring a certain part of that with us. It's not like we flip a switch and, okay, I'm now, Org the Frothy, and that's all I do, and all other thoughts are blocked out. But that obviously that doesn't happen. But what we want is we want people to focus on the community and the goals of the community, not on their differences. It's when you look at the size, the potential size that SBS has said that you will have, between 10,000 to 16,000 players in a kingdom. That's the size of a decent sized town, settlement in real life in the United States.
That's a lot of players.
It's a lot of players. And there is no decent sized town in the United States that says, okay, we're only going to have Trump followers here, or okay, we're only going to have Hillary followers here, or we're only going to have white people or black people or immigrants, or, it's only going to be a Christian town, etc. We have to be able to work together. And just like in real life, nobody has ever fully solved this. I mean, you see protests going on, even today kind of thing, and so, we want to not change how people think, obviously. I don't care on that level whether you follow Trump or Hillary or whatever. What I do care about is that people can set that aside and get into being a member of Boardwall and looking at what we need to do for a common goal to grow there.
Yep. And I assume that players, so long as the character itself is within good standing and they haven't committed any major crimes or anything, I'm assuming that players may freely travel and even move from one town to another town in a different county, in a different duchy, in a different, on a different side of the kingdom itself. It's all fine and dandy. Players can move around, and there shouldn't be any problems with anything like that. They're not limited to just the area that they start in. That they're free to roam within the game, as it should be within an MMO, and that in fact. Creating trade whenever we come into the in-game aspects of it, that communication amongst different parts of even the same kingdom, which can be vastly huge in game. I need to point that out. That trade amongst it and merchants who travel all across the kingdom to move wares about to where one group needs this and another group needs that, and they can trade that over for that. That there's an opportunity for players to have lots of different styles and be able to see lots of different places in the game and not have to worry about being limited to just living in one little space once they've committed themselves to, I live in this town. You're not always stuck there. You can feel free to move around anytime you like, right? Maybe not. Did I lose you?
Sorry, I just unmuted Twitch and I was getting double feedback. So let me address that. The answer is kind of like a yes and no, and I'll again kind of like to answer the question fully. I have to start at a different starting place.
Okay.
And the different starting place that I will be at is, for example, just on our duchy, the Duchy of Blood Oak, of which Salvatore County
I'll explain why I showed it a little bit.
Is a part
That's
of.
not the game. That's a whole other game that's
you're
connected.
Probably aware that
I'll explain.
I have 4 simple basic rules, and people think, well, as the leader, as the duke, or as the king, you're the guy setting the rules down. You need to have like this complex judicial system so that people do this and they don't do that, blah blah blah. But our rules are basic. And I'll explain why in just a moment. Rule number 1 is don't be a dick. And this is just very simple. Just don't be an arse to your fellow player in the community. Rule number 2 is that, pay your taxes. Taxes will be kept to a bare minimum. I'm not interested in sitting on a treasury, piled high with gold. If you've been following, you probably heard me say half an hour ago, I've been MMOing for 20 years. I don't need lots of money. I'd rather that you guys keep as much of your money as you can and reinvest it back in your own communities to let them grow and thrive and prosper.
In-game money, obviously.
Rule number 3 is don't PvP unconsensually within the duchy. So you can practice, pickpocketing on each other or sticking a sword in each other's throats if you want to. It just has to be done consensually. Any non-consensual PvP will basically have disciplinary actions, which we can get to at another time. And the fourth one is very simply, if the war horns sound, you come and in whatever capacity you can, whether that's actually physically picking up a shield and protecting the duchy against outside threats, or whether it's supplying the people with the shields or anything in between, that's totally up to you guys. And so what this does is, and I've been asked often, why do you only have these 4 rules? And it is so that specifically, let's say Salvatore County can now make its own rules, because you see, the duchy rule supersedes anything that you as a county might have. So if you as a county said, we have a county law that says everybody must wear blue hats, okay? If on a duchy level, I had a law that said anybody that wears blue hats is criminal, you guys would automatically be marked as criminals within the duchy, even though within your own county you were following your own laws, right?
Right.
So these conflicts come up. So to prevent these conflicts coming up, I minimize the laws, but then it allows you to make the laws on a county level as simple or as complex as you want. You now have the ability that if for some reason you guys are all happy wearing blue hats and want to be Smurfs or whatever it is, I guess they wear white ones, whatever, but you can make that your county law and nobody else is going to interfere with that. Because I don't view that it is my role as either Duke or King to be telling each community how they should be enjoying the game from the perspective that they want to enjoy it. And so the fewer laws in a way that I have on the higher level, the less restricted you guys are to create what it is that you want within your own communities, whether that's on the county or the settlement level, etc. And now, where this goes one step further, obviously, in my opinion, you're free to go and wander around wherever you want to, right? And explore and do things, whether it's within the settlement, the county, the duchy, the kingdom, etc. But a county does have a right to say, we will have nobody else coming into the county. Anybody else coming into the county is considered to be an aggressor. I mean, I doubt that we would see that extreme situation happen. But, if they did, you might find that you couldn't quite exactly go everywhere because somebody, whether it's a mayor, a homeowner, a count or whatever, somebody might put certain areas off limits. Like there might be a mine for particularly rare resources, or a specific very rare herb only grows in this one section of a county. That might be put off limits. So I think that you can physically go everywhere that you would want to, but there might be people that have put in some kind of in-game legal, let's say, borders as to, you shouldn't be in Area 51 kind of thing.
Right. But outside of anything where laws conflict from one place, in general, your general good standing person, as long as abiding by, if you're abiding by the king's laws, all I mean is that we do encourage. I just don't want people to feel that they may be trapped in whatever decision of whatever town or county that they feel that they're in, and that's all I wanted to convey.
Yeah, not at all. And I think that we're even seeing that before the game starts, that people join a community, they like the sound of it, and then maybe 2 months later, it's like, oh, it's not quite what I thought it was. I'm
Yeah,
going to
you
join this
were
other county. And we encourage that, and our counts have really worked with that, and they're finding that they might lose a couple of people, but then those weren't people that in the end were fully vested in their particular vision, but then they pick up a couple from another county.
right,
So
and
it's
it's like you were saying, each duchy kind of has its own feel, right, in the way that it's set up. Maybe there's someone that would actually fit better in another duchy with the role play or the style that seems to be going on there, versus another one, and people can feel free that if they feel comfortable or more comfortable, that don't feel that you're absolutely stuck in the town that you are, and that if you come into this game, that the commitment that you make, that somehow you can't travel or move around, because in fact I would say that there's tons of opportunity to travel, and if you find a group of people that you personally enjoy playing with, don't feel bad if you've committed to one town and you end up going to another, so long as you feel happy as a player about where you are, and that's important, right? Because that goes back to the health of the community that you talked about earlier, all the way. A king is only as healthy as his duchy, who's as healthy as his county, who's as healthy as his barons and mayors, and the people underneath them, and we want to encourage that.
agreed. And there's this, we don't want kind of like a revolving door kind
Right,
of
right,
policy, because obviously a healthy community is also a stable community, right? So
right.
we expect and actually encourage, you know, a certain amount of what I would say is kind of like acceptable, let's say migration, as people find, the niche and where they like, or, they had joined, this particular group because they were going to be, beekeepers, for example. But then the game starts and they find out that they don't like beekeeping, but they want to try their hand at scribing. Well, if there aren't any scribes or a need for it in that particular community, they're going to move on, and they do so, I think, with everybody's blessing.
Right.
There isn't any doubt about that. But we don't want people kind of like running willy nilly about to where nothing gets done, kind of thing.
Yes, yes, yes. That, yeah. I wasn't going to go that direction, but you're absolutely right. There is an amount of stability needs to be within the course of the kingdom for it to be a healthy kingdom, because it can't function without stability, and things will break down. If you've committed to an obligation to a particular thing, you should complete that obligation, or find someone else who can complete that obligation for you to relieve you of that obligation in whatever you do. I'm just from the perspective of a player coming into the game. Whenever you're first coming in, I just don't want people that we're enticing in to feel that they are that from the get go they're just stuck somewhere. I don't want you to feel that way at all. But yes, it is. It's been remarkable to even get to talk to you tonight, and I want to thank you so much for letting me even talk to you about the kingdom. And is there anything you would like to say about the kingdom that maybe we didn't get to so far in the hour?
No, I think we've kind of like been able to touch on it. I like the free flow of the discussion and everything, and I would primarily echo your sentiments that it doesn't matter what you choose to start off as. It's kind of like it's what you want to end up being in the end, and you won't discover that until you've actually experienced the game.
Yeah, to get
You
your
know,
claws into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that I want to do, and it's not necessarily on a kingly level. I want to be able to fricking sneak across the border and jimmy somebody's lock on the door of their home and fricking ransack it, kind of stuff. And that's, you know, um, and maybe that's what I want to do right now, but maybe I find out that that's not quite as enjoyable in actual game or as practical as I thought it might be, and I end up doing something else. Maybe I end up becoming an architect. But these are all things to kind of, this is the fun of being able to explore and having so many choices. Whether you want to get involved in PvP, whether you want to follow the 10-year storyline and get involved in that on a more aggressive basis and follow the quests. There are kind of like going to be the dynamic quests in game, etc. Or we've got a group that wants to, spearhead the development of ships and be amongst the first on the entire server to research ocean-going vessels, so we can find the new continent with where the Madari and the Erishe and the Yoru, etc. At. You you basically, it's up to you, and this goes back again to the Ultima Online thing, where you could pick and choose what you wanted to be. There were skills and professions, but there weren't classes. It's not like I'm choosing to be a ranger, or I'm choosing to be a cleric, or whatever the case might be. It's like, people could mix and match whatever they wanted to create their own particular character, and that was the fun of it. To me, that was a lot of the fun.
Your only limitation within the game is based upon the time that you have to play it and how creative you want to be with yourself. Yeah, there are no defined classes. It is a true sandbox in respect, and your skills, all of the skills, all of the things are available to you in the game. What puzzle pieces are you going to pick up? Are you going to be a jack of all trades, master of none? Are you going to be hyper focused into a particular trade, such as blacksmithing or tailoring? Are you going to be some sort of a character that just wants to go out and look for fights, and maybe you're a part of the guardsmen? Are you going to be not a part of the official capacity of the kingdom, but merely a citizen that's out there being a farmer who's raising crops for his community, and in turn also the kingdom, to helping it be healthy? Are you maybe a bad person that's running around in the shadows, and you've decided to train up deviant skills, and you're going to go steal and cause havoc? Or even more, are you a spy for some other unknown sinister organization that's out there to cause havoc? These choices and all of this is up to you within this game. There's no preset criteria, and I would like to say that personally, I encourage you to check this game out, and to be in and really just consider what this game can be as it comes out. Imagine what you can do, and the freedom without having yourself bound down to these laws that we've typically accepted within MMOs over the past 10 years, that you can really open up, and getting back to something as free as Ultima Online and as expansive as EVE Online. Dee, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been absolutely a pleasure and awesome to talk to you, sir. For taking your time to talk about the kingdom and the game in general. And where can I posted the link, but people can find all the information from local Discord of the kingdom to all within that link posted below, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, and I want to thank you for inviting me, obviously, and taking the time and the interest to have us come on and explain a little bit about the community and how it's growing.
It's a little self-serving, obviously, because I am fascinated and I love this game. I find it ultimately intriguing. I find there are other games out there that show a lot of promise and that they look like they're a lot of fun, but nothing like this. This game to me says I can pull you in and keep you captive for the next X amount of years without poking my head out, because it's like something I could fall into and fall in love with as I create a story of history of my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren within a video game. And where does my soul go, and what mark will I leave on the world? Because you will literally be able to leave your own little mark on the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely so. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, sir. This has been Chronicles of Elyria this past 2 hours. I'd also like to thank Santana for coming and joining us earlier today. And for the videos that we're playing in the background, you can find all of these on the Chronicles of Elyria website and or YouTube. You can find the YouTube channel there. And also remember, if you're signing up to Chronicles, if you just want to create an account on the web, you don't want to buy into the game, but you might want to be interested and maybe ask questions on the forums or anything like that, there is a friend code up there at the top that you can use whenever you sign up. And again, thank you all so much. Regarding that engine walkthrough, that was just showing what the Elyria mud is going to be, which I haven't even covered today, but I may cover a little bit later. What that is, and that's going to be a Minecrafty almost looking game, not functioning, that is tied into the Unreal's back engine of the live game itself, or of the full 3D animated world game, because it allows them to test the back-end systems of the Soulbound engine and the Unreal Engine as they're working on it, without having to render the full high-definition 3D world that we're going to be playing in an easier to render mud style or Minecrafty looking blockish game that will allow us to it allows them to test the back engine without having to give out the full game. And that's pretty amazing that it can communicate like that. And that'll be coming soon to us to be able to start testing out that stuff. But anyway, thank you again so much. And I'm gonna leave you alone, let you get out of here, and we're also going to take a break, and we'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Everybody, don't go anywhere. You're watching the area stream, and I hope you've enjoyed that segment, the past 2 hours on Chronicles of Elyria. We'll be right back.